In Brazil, the president of the Superior Electoral Tribunal outruled President Jair Bolsonaro's request to annul the votes of the presidential runoff, while ordering a fine of $4.3 million for bad faith litigation. In Colombia, President Gustavo Petro reaffirmed his commitment to total peace on the eve of the 6th anniversary of the signing of the peace agreement with FARC-EP. And the Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez concluded his official visit to Türkiye and heads towards China as part of the agenda of his international tour. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. On Wednesday, Brazil's Superior Electoral Tribunal rejected the Liberal Party's demand to annul the votes of some ballot boxes in the presidential runoff election. In addition, the president of the electoral power, Alexandre de Moraes, ordered a fine of $4.3 million for bad faith litigation to the electoral process. Under the terms of Wednesday's Electoral Court decision, political funds for the president's coalition parties were ordered blocked until the fine is paid. The ruling also ordered an investigation into any misuse of the party's structure and funds. In this context, the Electoral Authority demanded the sending of copies of the inquiry to the Supreme Federal Court within the framework of the investigation of the actions of an alleged digital militia to attack democracy and the institutions. The peace broker at the dialogue table between the Colombian government and the ELN in Venezuela, Violeta Arango, said that this is a peace process negotiation for the Colombian people, who is expecting real transformations and the end of the use of violence.
It is a peace process, so it is not just about silence and the guns. It is about bringing about real transformation that may lead to dialogue of the whole Colombian society, so that we may live in peace without the need to resort to violence to solve our conflict.
Arango also highlighted that Venezuela and Colombia are brotherly countries and share common interests for the new era of peace in the country.
As we have repeatedly said these days, Venezuela and Colombia are not just sister nations, but rather siamestrans. We are a single people divided by a border that is more of an imaginary line. So in that sense, what concerns Venezuela concerns Colombia, and what concerns Colombia concerns Venezuela. And it has been very gratifying for us to be able to count on the support of this sister nation of Venezuela.
In Chile, the strike and partial road blockade imposed by the Confederation of Transport Companies, Fuerza del Norte, continued for the third consecutive day after rejecting a government proposal to end the conflict. The drivers are demanding lower fuel prices and more security on the roads due to the increase in robberies, assaults, and looting of cargo. In response to these demands, the government offered to set up 12 safe rest areas and promised to inject $1.5 billion to stabilize fuel prices for the next 6 months. However, union leaders described the measures as insufficient and announced their decision to maintain the strike indefinitely. On Wednesday, UNICEF announced that the outbreak of cholera in Haiti is affecting a growing number of children amid a surge of malnutrition. Manuel Fontaine, director of UNICEF's Office of Emergency Programs, during a visit to the nation, said that the combination is deadly, means that some 40% of cholera cases in more than 11 million inhabitants now involve children, with 9 out of 10 cases reported in areas where people are starving. Cholera has killed more than 200 people since the first deaths were announced in early October, and another 9,300 are hospitalized, and is expected to increase as malnutrition worsens, especially in urban areas like the Cid Soleil slum in the capital, Port-au-Prince.
Well, the thing is, malnutrition and cholera kind of feed each other. So if you're malnourished, you're going to be weaker, and so you're more likely to get cholera and die from cholera. Someone who's very well fed and strong is less likely to at least get the worst form of cholera and can recover faster. So malnutrition will be an aggravating factor to cholera. What also happens is sometimes children have cholera or they have diarrhea, bad watery diarrhea, and then they dehydrate and they get into malnutrition with that. So one can lead to the other, and vice versa. But both together is just a terrible. It's a terrible cobble for children. I mean, it's something that really can kill children.
Let's take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news, updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Colombia, President Gustavo Petro reaffirmed his commitment to total peace on the 6th anniversary of the signing of the peace accords with the disarmed FARC-EP. During a speech, the Colombian president reiterated that the total peace process requires the fulfillment of the agreements already signed with the FARC. Furthermore, Petro emphasized that the deliberate non-compliance with the agreements by past administrations turned the state of the South American nation into a belligerent actor in the context of the armed conflict. In turn, President Gustavo Petro stressed that the total peace process implies a change in the world political and financial system, which will contribute to give access to wealth to rural populations.
Perhaps Colombian society discovered after these years the real importance of peace, discovered after all these years the real importance of transformation in politics, in society, and in the country's economy. In these years, for reasons perhaps different from those of any former FARC combatant, the majority of society itself learned that we cannot continue living as we are, that the country will not go to good port if the structures of inequality that lead us to violence continue, the structures of exclusion of the population of society that lead us to violence, the structures of an economy that is even global that lead us to violence.
And President Petro denounced that the omissions of previous Colombian administrations, together with the pervasiveness of the international context, are historically responsible for the recent increase in violence in the nation.
From the Colombian point of view, undoubtedly a total peace has to do with the fulfillment of what has already been signed. If a state does not keep its word and a political fraction of a country has dedicated itself to not fulfilling the agreement from the government, what I have found in reality is a premeditated intention not to comply with the peace agreements signed 6 years ago, and that generates violence when the international context allows it. Also, the international context is a generator of violence. If both things come together, then what we have in the country is violence.
The president of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel, concluded his official visit to Türkiye, calling it fruitful and encouraging after both nations ratified their will to continue strengthening friendly relations. The Cuban presidency, in a statement, pointed out that both nations agreed to continue working in sectors such as biotechnology, renewable energies, tourism, agriculture, and health, among others. Diaz-Canel thanked, on behalf of the Cuban people, Turkey's support to the demand to put an end to the blockading policy imposed by the United States on his country, a fact that he highly appreciates and values. The Cuban president is scheduled to arrive on Thursday in Beijing, the capital of China, where he will make an official visit to conclude his international tour. On Wednesday, the Federal Council adopted the remaining measures set out in the 8th package of sanctions against Russia. These include a legal basis for the introduction of oil price caps for Russian crude oil and petroleum products, as well as restrictions on other iron and steel products, aerospace goods, and goods of economic importance to Moscow. In addition to adopting the measures set out in the EU's eighth package of sanctions, the Federal Council included in the ordinance an arms embargo against Russia, which, for reasons of Swiss neutrality, will also be partially extended to Ukraine. Up to now, the arms embargo has been implemented in Switzerland on the basis of existing war material and goods control legislation. In Armenia, the summit of the Collective Security Treaty Organization agreed to work on strengthening international and regional security. Armenia chaired and hosted the session held on Wednesday, which was also attended by Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, and Tajikistan. Also, the CSTO members during the meeting adopted several important political documents, including the declaration of the CSTO foreign ministers proposed by Kyrgyzstan, the strengthening of international and regional security on arms control, and the fight against nationalism and extremism. In this context, the members approved the text of the final declaration of the CSTO as Council and other documents. Now we move on to other topics. In Indonesia, the death toll rose to 271 following the 5.6 magnitude earthquake that struck the province of West Java on November 21st. According to information provided by the Disaster Mitigation Agency, at least 1,083 people were injured, while 40 are still missing. In this context, officials said that search and rescue efforts are continuing, with the use of bulldozers and trucks to clear the roads. The governor of West Java, Ridwan Kamil, also said that more than 13,000 people whose homes were severely damaged were transferred to evacuation centers where they are receiving basic supplies and medical care. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Angola's Foreign Minister, Tere Antonio, said an agreement has been struck which could mean the adoption of a ceasefire in the violence-torn east of the Democratic Republic of the Congo as soon as late Friday. DRC President Felix Tshisekedi met with Rwandan Foreign Minister Vincent Birura in Luanda on Wednesday as tensions soared between the neighbors amid bloody militia violence on their border. Eastern DRC has witnessed fierce fighting in recent months between Congolese troops and the M23 rebel group. Angola's foreign minister also said that the parties are also agreed to demand the immediate withdrawal of M23 rebels from the occupied areas. The clashes trigger a diplomatic row, with the DRC accusing Rwanda of aiding the rebels, something that its far smaller neighbor denies. The East African Community, of which Rwanda is a member, also vowed to deploy a joint force to cool the violence. In Syria, authorities denounce that the world is witnessing a greater escalation of violence due to the hegemonic mentality of the United States. Syrian Deputy Foreign Minister Ayman Zuzan said on Wednesday that the U.S. administration exercised lies and disinformation and sent thousands of terrorists from more than 90 countries to kill Syrians and sabotage their achievements. In this regard, the official denounced that the practices of the United States and other countries, in particular the support to terrorist groups, constitute war crimes and crimes against humanity and flagrantly violate the UN Charter. On Tuesday, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari inaugurated the Kolmani Integrated Development Project to drill oil and gas in the northeastern part of the country. At the flag-off ceremony, President Buhari said that the Kolmani project has become the prioritized oil drilling area in northeastern Nigeria after the discovery of over 1 billion barrels of oil reserves and 500 billion cubic feet of gas 2 years ago. So far, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited and 2 local partners have invested $3 billion. The Kolmani project is a fully integrated in-situ development comprising upstream production, oil refining, power generation, and fertilizers. President Buhari said the new oil fields are a vital pillar in the country's economic architecture, expected to bring energy and financial security as well as overall socio-economic development. Let's go to the sports segment. The Moroccan national team showed its organization and preparation for this World Cup against Croatia, who, dominated by caution and fear, offered very little attack, leaving the match tied 0-0. The world's second-place team arrived in Qatar determined to continue advancing in the fight for the title, boasting 5 consecutive victories in their last 5 matches, 4 of them in the Nations League. However, the determination of the Moroccan team was ready to not give in, as they qualified for Qatar 2022 without much trouble, winning all the group matches. In other news, the surprise of the day in the FIFA World Cup is the victory of Japan over Germany, 2-1. The German team began winning with a goal scored by İlkay Gündoğan from a penalty shot at the minute 33. The 4-time champions of the world had the best chances in the first half, but they could not score again. In the last 45 minutes, Japan created more danger in the German area. The history was very similar to the first half, but this time Japan scored when they had the chance. Rizzo Doan drew the game in the 75th minute, and 8 minutes later, Takuma Asano struck from the right side. Germany kept trying until the end, but Japan had a strong defense. And Costa Rica's fans are still hopeful that the team can get back on their winning track in the next matches.
I never expected what ended up happening. It is unprecedented in Costa Rica because something like this has never happened to us. So we now hope to be able to recover in the next 2 matches.
I feel that losing is fine, so long as you lose while still playing. Today we didn't play at all, so it was really a great disappointment for all Costa Ricans. It is a shame because there were very many Costa Ricans here supporting, and I feel that they were not up to the task.
And Michy Batshuayi's first half goal proved enough for a below-par Belgium to squeeze to a 1-0 win over Canada, since side playing their first World Cup match in 36 years on Wednesday. Belgium goalkeeper Thibaut Courtois saved Alphonso Davies' early penalty, and Batshuayi opened the scoring against the run of play in the 44th minute. John Hertzmann's Canada had another strong penalty appeal turned down and dominated the second half to no avail. Belgium were without the injured record goal scorer Romelu Lukaku and struggled throughout with the pace of Canada's forwards. The 2018 semi-finalists clung on to move on top of what could prove a hotly contested Group F after Croatia and Morocco's goalless draw. And just as the hearts of millions of fans live the emotions of the Qatar 2022 World Cup, TeleSUR joins this sporting event with From the Field, a show that brings news, analysis, reviews, and more to our audience. Don't miss it. Our show airs 1 p.m. local time in Caracas and 12 p.m. New York. Remember, From the Field, only on TeleSUR. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.